Captain, we have them. We've established Transporter Lock, the Star Trek Discovery podcast. Join Ken and Sabriel each week as they explore strange new episodes, seek out new plots and new characters, and boldly go where no podcast has gone before.
Hello and welcome to Transporter Lock episode number 65 for Saturday, November 14th, 2020. I'm your co-host, Chief Engineer Ken Gagney.
And I am Captain Sabriel Maston. It's good to be back. Good to be back.
Captain, we are in a much better place mentally and emotionally than we were when we recorded this show a week ago.
Oh, that's for sure.
We still got a lot of battles left to fight, but I feel like at least we're winning the war.
Uh-huh.
So we are here this week to talk about Star Trek Discovery, Season 3, Episode 5, Die Trying. And this is the episode where we finally get Discovery and the 31st Century Federation reunited, and they go on their first mission. Very exciting. So That's the TLDR. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to add still, like last week you were talking about, I wonder if we're going to get to the Federation next week. And I had seen the preview, and so I was like,
I suspected they would get to the Federation. I wasn't sure what kind of a welcome they would get. I thought that the Federation might be the bad guys, kind of like the Vidrash that we saw in Calypso.
Yeah, we're kept a little. It's still a little mysterious, but they seem to be okay.
Yeah. And when I say we saw in Calypso, I mean it was implied in Calypso. We didn't actually see the Vidrash. But in this episode, Die Trying, it starts off basically with the Federation expecting them. So they've been hailed and said, okay, you can come on in. And the episode opens with a whole lot of Easter eggs. Or sometimes we end this podcast by talking about all the Easter eggs we caught. It's kind of hard to ignore such a bounty of Easter eggs at the very beginning of the episode. So what are some of the things that you noticed, Bri?
Oh gosh, well here, like right away, like one of my favorite things about Star Trek is the ship porn. And here they just like front loaded that front and center. Here you go, here's the ship porn, here's everything you missed. In the last 900 years, 1,000 years, have fun with it. But
now, what would you describe or define as ship porn?
Oh, ship porn. Ship porn is people just like draw fan art. People just love drawings and schematics of ships. Like even me, I'm watching Discovery. Like even this episode, Saru's in his office. I can see the schematic of Discovery in the background. I'm watching that stuff. I just love that stuff, and that's ship porn. Like we get to see the 3D art, the sides views, like everything. I just love looking at the ships.
Yeah, I have the technical reference manual for the Enterprise D, and I have the wall calendar Ships of the Line, where every month it's not a different character or alien or planet or episode. It's just a different ship. You know, it's just cool to look at this futuristic technology.
Yeah, and so the big one, because Kirsten Beyer is the biggest Voyager fan out there, one of the showrunners or principal people behind Discovery, is a huge Voyager fan and writes countless Voyager novels. She wanted to put front and center the USS Voyager J. Like even had the horns from the theme song a little bit in there. Just like, bam, here's Voyager. And they're like, even stop and look at the traditional view that we're used to seeing the Voyager original. No bloody A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or no.
H or I.
But like the same view we're used to seeing, that right front and center with the numbers on there. And they stop and like Tilly even comments on it and like, love to hear those stories. I'm like, yeah, that's Kirsten Beyer talking, not Tilly.
And one thing you have to remember is that at the time that Discovery was launched, the ship, there was no Voyager A. So they don't know anything about this Janeway crew that went to the Delta Quadrant. So this ship, they're not commenting on the fact that it's a Voyager. They're commenting on the fact that it's a J.
Yeah. So, and I don't know, maybe the J is, they might have just kind of calculated a timeline, but it could be either a reference to Enterprise when they had the Enterprise J or Janeway.
Oh, because the Enterprise J was during the Temporal War, right?
Yeah. And so it could be both, or nothing. It could be just like, hey, let's pick a cool letter. But I mean, they usually do things with some intent. So it could be, I think it's a little bit of both.
Well, even I was thinking the letter J. So Voyager, the TV show, is set, let's say, like 150 roughly years after Discovery. And so that would make it 780 years for them to go from no letter at all to J, so that'd be like 11 or 12 generations. So that's like 70 years per generation or so. That's a long time for a single ship to be flying. I mean, how many Enterprises did just Kirk go through? He was on 3 different ones.
Yeah.
Huh. So I guess Voyagers are long-lived ships.
Voyagers must have exploded more because Enterprise is at D by the time Voyager was around, and Voyager already has J. They have the Enterprise J and the Voyager J at the same time, roughly. Man,
Right.
okay, we're going to semantics. There's so much more ship porn here. There was a really cool one I think you noticed too.
Well, I think the one you want to talk about is the one you noticed. I didn't notice it at all until you brought it up.
The Nog?
Yeah.
A little nod to Aaron Eisenberg, who passed away this last year.
Yeah, the USS Nog is named after the Ferengi character from Deep Space Nine. And then I looked up on Memory Alpha, and the class of vessel that it's an Eisenberg-class starship. And that's named after
cool.
Aaron Eisenberg, the
That's
actor.
really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, what did Nog, the character, do to get a ship named after him?
Yeah, maybe it's a ship of Ferengi. And yeah.
Oh, that's true, because, at first I thought, Bri, that's really racist. But then I thought, wait a minute, Starfleet does have, like, Vulcan science vessels.
Uh-huh.
So why not? I wonder if this implies that the Ferengi joined the Federation.
Could be, or could be just, in universe, it could be that. Could be just like, hey, this is the first person of this group to join the Federation. Let's honor them. Well,
in that case, there should be a USS Worf.
There might be. Or there might have been.
And there should have been a Worf TV show, as we all know, but that never happened.
No, sadly.
There was another ship called the USS Armstrong, which when I first saw it, I thought, well, clearly that's named after Neil Armstrong, the first person to set foot on the Terran moon. And I still believe that's likely the case, but then it also occurred to me, it could be Vaughn Armstrong, the actor, who has been in TOS, TNG, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise. He's played 12 different characters, most notably Admiral Forrest on Star Trek Enterprise. And that character, of course, was named after DeForest Kelley, who played Bones McCoy. But, however, that actor is still alive.
Wait, you said TOS?
Yes, he's been on every live-action Star Trek series except Discovery and Picard.
I didn't think he was on the original series.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. He was not in TOS. He's not that old, but he has played 12 characters on 4 different live-action series, TNG, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise. So that's still quite the run for a single actor.
Yeah. He's so cool. I really hope they squeeze him in somehow. I know he'd be all for it. It's more to fan service, though, at this point than anything, but whatever. It'd be cool.
In the Terminator series, based on which movie or timeline you're adhering to, the T-800 or T-101 wasn't modeled after Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was modeled after a character who was involved in the development of the robots, like somebody working at Cyberdyne. Or kind of like in DS9, how we learned that the EMH was modeled after Dr. Zimmerman. So why can't they have a hologram, which, as we saw, are clearly important characters in the future, modeled after some historical character? I would not be surprised if we saw like a holographic representation of Commander Riker, because he's been on every show. Why not this one?
I think you would love that so much.
I'm the Riker J. Why not? So, are there any other ships you noticed?
Those are the ones I noticed. I got a kick out of talking about holographic ship hulls.
Yeah. Wow.
So that could be a little vague. So if we ever get to see it, we need to see what it actually means. Because I could see like the internals are holographic. Or the Federation has finally fixed the problem of power failures. Otherwise, if the holodeck wall of the outside wall of your holodeck ship disappears, you wake up dead.
That would be problematic. Yeah, there would probably need to be some physical component somewhere in the ship.
Yeah.
They mentioned organic hulls, and I wonder if that's a natural evolution of the neural gel packs that Voyager had?
Yeah. Or species 8472. Who knows if that's any connection?
That's right. They had bioships as well.
Yeah.
They also observed some neutronium hulls, and I'm not going to be an exhaustive reference to every reference of neutronium in Star Trek history, but the two that I want to mention are the Doomsday Machine from TOS was made of neutronium, as well as the Dyson Sphere in TNG had a neutronium alloy hull. So this is a substance that in the old days, the Federation and Starfleet were not capable of artificially manufacturing, and they suspected it was even beyond the capabilities of the Borg. So apparently by the future, Starfleet finally cracked that code.
It's really cool to see just the advancements in tech, even if it's gibberish, but it's still kind of neat. It's still kind of neat just to see, like, hey, yep, we're advanced more.
It's not gibberish to you and me.
True.
And then there was also many references to familiar aliens and alien worlds, especially once they stepped foot on the starbase. I noticed when they first set foot and the camera is sort of like behind a visual display looking at the characters walking down the corridor toward the camera, and there was a brief, the only word I could make out was the word Kazon.
Yeah, I wrote a few of these down that I caught. There was the Kazon clan form. There was a reference to Talax. There was reference to the Founders' homeworld 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Where did you see all these?
They were on there, but they were kind of blurry, or depending on maybe your screen size, I don't know, but they were all there on the same page, quote unquote. Like the Founder one was on the right side of the screen. The Delta Quadrant stuff that we know is on the left. And there was also a reference to Federation Deep Space Outpost 36.
Is that a familiar outpost?
Nope. But it exists, and so it's neat. It's to me, this is a more or less inconsequential, but also for the viewer shows like, hey, it looks like the Federation actually got that far back out into the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah, well, in the books, didn't they have? Didn't Voyager go back to the Delta Quadrant as some sort of a Federation ambassador?
Yep. Project Full Circle.
Oh,
they went back with the transwarp drives.
See, I didn't read those books, so I think this is stuff I've only gleaned from co-hosting with a show with somebody who knows more than me.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff is back to Kristen Beyer. Yeah, and so you could see her all over the stuff, and she's loving being able to put the stuff that she wrote in beta canon into actual canon.
Oh yeah, I love it when that happens. Like I think. That's how they incorporated the Andorians being two different colors, because that was from the animated series, which was not canon. And then there was in Star Wars, wasn't there? I forget his name. An admiral, a bad guy from the post-original trilogy books, who they recently made. Admiral Thrawn.
Thrawn. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So I haven't read the original books. I haven't seen the animated series, but I heard when he first appeared in the animated series, like Star Wars fans lost their collective crap because they're like, oh my God, this is a beta canon character from novels written 30 to 40 years ago, and now he's real.
Yeah. I live with someone who recognized it. Yes, it was a big deal.
I need to go read the original books in which he appeared. I think I have the paperbacks in storage. It's been on my to-do list.
I heard they're good.
Let's see. So clearly the Federation has ebbed and flowed. It's shrunk and expanded, or not necessarily in that order. I don't know if these aliens that you mentioned, the Founders, the Kazon, Talax, if they are just species they've encountered or if they are members of the Federation, but we do know that the Kelpian homeworld and the Barzan homeworld have both joined the Federation at some point. Whether or not they're still in there, we don't know. Are these... Now, the Kelpians clearly are new to Discovery, but Barzan, is that something we've encountered before?
Yeah, they were in TNG. They're the people who had the Barzan wormhole where the Ferengi went into it and appeared in the Delta Quadrant on Voyager.
Oh, were they using the little breathalyzers even back then?
Gosh, I can't remember the faces. To be honest, I can't remember the episode too much. But I can imagine this is an extension of that. So I'd have to look at that, but I don't remember.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I did a little bit more research on Memory Alpha, and apparently around the time of Star Trek First Contact, the Federation consisted of 150 worlds. In this episode, Die Trine, we learned that at its height, the Federation was 350. So they'd more than doubled at some point in the last 900 years. But now they're down to a tenth of that. They're down to 38 homeworlds. And as you noted, there may be more, but since they can't travel to them, they actually don't know how those planets are doing or if they still consider themselves to be in the Federation.
Yeah. So, oofda.
I'm curious, though, what is the correlation between the burn and the apparent lack of subspace communications? Why can't they communicate via subspace anymore?
Yes, that's a good question. I hadn't really thought of before. I wonder if maybe that will get answered because subspace just that hasn't changed. I mean, Michael said she contacted Terra Elysium, but it took forever to get a message back. That's also weird. I don't know. Maybe relay stations blew up as well, but that doesn't make sense either. I don't know.
Yeah, because subspace is not run on dilithium. We know from TNG that depending on how the dilithium-powered warp core is manufactured, it can disrupt subspace. And we got a hint of that in the first episode when Booker said that the Orions had destroyed some subspace. But to suggest that that happened on such a widespread fashion that no subspace communications are possible anymore, we haven't seen evidence of that.
Maybe it's because dilithium-powered stuff doesn't necessarily meant it made warp drive do the thing. Maybe it was just a primary power source, and so when that power source poofed, it made it slower.
Maybe.
Hypothesis, throwing it out there. I don't know.
Maybe that explosion of dilithium did damage subspace. That seems reasonable.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, if we just like suddenly lost petroleum here, or just poofed all one day, just poofed. Like, I mean, we'd come up with, we have our alternate power sources, so we could, and we still have the satellites, so we could still talk to each other. We just couldn't get there as easily. And so, I don't know, it's just weird. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that before.
However, speaking of the Orions possibly damaging subspace, we got another reference to the Andorian Orion Syndicate, which was running the market that we saw in the first episode. Apparently, they're still active in this part of where the Federation is located as well, and they're called the Emerald Chain.
Yeah, I had to do a double tape because the villains in my D&D campaign are called the Emerald Claw. And so I was like, what? Did I hear that right?
And also there is a series of city parks throughout Boston, which are called the Emerald Necklace.
Huh.
And I had only learned of that phrase like 10 years ago, just by growing up in Massachusetts. And I was like, wait, the Emerald Necklace? Is this some sort of like the Queen's jewelry that's on display at some museum? No, it's parks. And the Emerald Chain, I mean, okay, Orions are green, Andorians are not. They're blue. So why is this the Emerald Chain?
Maybe the Orions created it, and Andorian's like, hey, can we get on that? And it's like, sure, you are our chain of planets now.
And they are run by somebody named Osira, I believe.
Osira, yeah. Or Osira is at least a big name in there. It's a new name for us this week. So is, I think, the Emerald Chain. I don't think it's been named before.
No, I don't think so either. In Memory Alpha, it says Osira was the leader of the Emerald Chain, and then Emerald Chain.
Okay.
That it says that the mercantile on Hema, which was the first episode, was operated by the Emerald Chain. I don't know if they're inferring that or if it actually said so in That Hope Is You Part 1. I don't remember hearing that, but since it lacked context, I might not have just paid attention to it.
Yeah, I guess to go back, but yeah, I think it's just assuming because of what we saw. But hey,
one thing we do know though is that Osira is not some sort of Ryzen party drug.
The debriefing scene. I thought it was great. I loved it.
Well, let's talk about it. So they come on board, and since, as we know from the end of the last season, there are no records of Discovery or Control. They all got wiped to preserve the future. So that means when they show up in the future, the Federation has no record of them and no reason to believe them. So they need a full debriefing, which they do person by person, and we get little glimpses into those interactions.
Yeah, okay. I did like the Federation doesn't trust us because we don't exist. Like, if we saw this happen to our crew, Discovery just all of a sudden, like, finds a ship that's 1,000 years old, but they swear that they're still in the same alliance. I mean, our heroes would still do this questioning too, you gotta prove it first. And I'm glad we get to see the other side of that for once. I think that was really neat.
Yeah, we have episodes of Star Trek, Voyager, TNG, where they find ships that have been lost for centuries, but they know they've been lost because they have a record of them. And so it sparks their curiosity as explorers. If they found a ship that they had no record of, well, Starfleet is not generally in the habit of deleting records, so that would be suspicious.
Yeah, so I like that. I like that turn of the normal we get in Star Trek.
Yeah, and you like the debriefing scenes.
Oh god, I got a kick out of it because like this is a moment for the show to touch the fourth wall and the ridiculousness of what happens on a week-to-week episodes. Like Culber's like, yeah, I was murdered, but my murderer and I are good now. Or they're talking to Jet, and they're like, you were on an asteroid? She's like, yeah, Commander Burnham fell out of the sky with Captain Pike. It was raining Starfleet officers. I'm like,
did you bring any snacks? I'm starving.
Or silly. It's like, yeah, my hair got blown out, and then I became a Terran Captain Dominatrix. Like,
and then a moment later, Jet has snacks.
Yep. I mean, just like I love a moment where they're touching the fourth wall. Like, not, yeah, it's fun. Like, yeah, these episodes, Star Trek is ridiculous, but in some of the most fun ways.
Well, it's kind of like the proverbial frog in the hot water, where we've been watching this show for 2 or 3 seasons, and we know these stories because we saw them play out bit by bit. But now here's an outsider who has no context and has been exposed to all of it all at once. And yeah, when you put it like that, it seems pretty unbelievable. Oh my. And Nan, why was she so combative? She did not want to cooperate with this interrogation.
She is playing the trope of, I'm a security officer, I've been captured by a potential hostile force. It was the trope, and she's a security officer.
I suppose, but she was being interrogated by, quote unquote, her own people. So, anyway.
She didn't want to be there.
Let's see. And I found their response. I found Starfleet's response to this. The suspicion was well intended, but then they decide, we're going to break up the crew and reassign you. And that I found a poor decision, because if you have a ship of, let's say, 100 people who suddenly show up and you're suspicious of them and you don't know where they're from or what their intentions are you going to sequester them all into one place? Or are you going to piecemeal them out into your entire organization where they can infiltrate? Like, no, you want to keep them all together, because if you spread them out, now they're part of your entire system. They're embedded, and that seems ill-advised.
It's ill-advised, but that's like one of the deeper things here. We don't have all the information yet, because Vance was very quick, very ready to start splitting them up immediately. And Saru was like, may I ask why? And Vance is like, nope. And Vance just says, basically, like, just put the needs of Starfleet ahead of the crew. And like, so that just begs the question that we don't know yet. What is the Federation's mission is if exploration has taken a back seat?
Yeah, they said that they've been playing triage for a long time, just trying to keep things running. And so maybe it's just a matter of resource allocation and defense from the Emerald Chain.
Yeah, because it's something we're probably going to get answered very soon, but it's just something more is going on than we know, and it's not necessarily nefarious on the Federation's part. It's just we don't have all the pieces yet.
I agree. Based on what we've seen in this episode, I'm not concerned about the Federation necessarily being the bad guys, with one possible exception, the guy wearing the suit and glasses.
Yeah, Glasses Guy. We don't have a name for him yet, so in our notes I kept calling him Glasses Guy.
He reminds me of the secret agents from Firefly who wore the blue gloves. Because this guy, he's wearing a Starfleet badge, but he's definitely not wearing a Starfleet uniform.
What was it? Or what were those? I didn't watch X-Files, but there was that group of agents.
Oh, I didn't watch it either. I don't know.
I know through cultural osmosis, there's this group, like not Blue Man Group. They even had their own show for a little bit before it was canceled. But X-Files fans will know what I'm talking about. But
do you think Glasses Guy might be Section 31?
Well, I was going to put a note, like he's totally Section 31, right? Or some variation thereof. This guy is a total weeb for Terran or the Mirror Universe. Like, he is a total Mirror Universe fanboy.
Yeah, even though there have been no crossings in 500 years, he has been fascinated by them ever since he was a little boy, he says.
Yeah, and it's his birthday is the day...
First Contact Day.
First Contact Day, or it's a holiday in the Mirror Universe as well. which is amusing to me.
Right, because we got to see how First Contact played out in Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah.
I love that.
But this guy, like, he knew exactly how to deal with someone from the mirror universe. Where he tells Georgiou, like, the only way to learn anything by you is the questions you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I thought that's a great way to find out about someone. I hadn't really thought of it that way. Like, yeah, that's brilliant, especially for someone as devious as Georgiou, who the holograms were even trying to put her off on edge, and she's basically like, whatever, get out of my face.
Yep. Although she was rattled to learn that the Terran Empire collapsed centuries ago.
Yeah, we don't get reactions out of her very often, and when she found that out, she paused for a second. I mean, it's subtle.
Her facial expression definitely showed some concern.
Yeah, but it was gone instantly again. Like, she's like, oh, can't show myself. But those questions, like, I think it's important for us on what questions she asked him. Which I wrote them down here. There's 3 questions here. She asked, who's really in charge now? And the burn was responsible for humbling the Federation. Who was responsible? Mm-hmm. And the last question was, the weakness of people is generally other people, isn't it? That last one came to turn around on her.
Yep. Because now this glasses guy thinks that there's somebody on Discovery who's important to Georgiou, who made her want to come to the future, to fall in line with Discovery, as he put it. And we see Georgiou being somewhat contemplative at the end of the episode, where Michael goes up to her and says hello, and Georgiou is just frozen in place, completely ignoring everything.
Yeah, she was just staring at the wall. Like, it's that, for us, I think it's most commonly in TV shows and movies as, like, in shock. But I don't know if that was quite here. But, like, when Glasses Guy asked her who on the crew is it you care about, she visibly swallows. And we know it's Michael. But here we see her just staring off, like, frozen, in a frozen state. And, like, what's going on here? She snaps out of it after a moment. But even as she approaches the camera away from view from Michael, she actually has a look of, like, what is going on?
Yeah, it was weird, because she is a character who is always in command of the situation, always knows every variable, even if the people around her don't. I mean, that's how she took down Control. She manipulated him into the chamber that she had rigged specifically to destroy him. And so for her to just be standing there and not even aware that somebody's saying hello to her, you wrote in your notes that some people think she may have been replaced by a hologram?
Yeah, online, people are wondering if she's been replaced, because in her debriefing, there was this holograms, and she made comments of, like, are you just a hologram who thinks he's a person, or a person who thinks he's a hologram? And people were thinking that, but they were in this episode, we had a number of holograms, and they were very specific to show that holograms don't blink, which she did here, and holograms have a different voice in the future. Like in post-production, they added this weird echoing effect to them. And so I don't think that she's been replaced by any kind of fake thing. I just feel like Glasses Guy off camera got to her because of that connection to Michael.
I agree she's not a hologram. I would be disappointed if she was, because we've seen enough of these people being substituted or taken over, whether it was Arium or Control. But, and by the way, what is your relationship with Control? We dated. I love that reply. But you and I just analyzed how little emotion Georgiou showed during the interrogation, how she didn't want to play her hand. And it seems in sharp contrast for her then to be standing in a hallway surrounded by other people, appearing visibly rattled for several moments. That is a weakness we're not accustomed to seeing from that character. So no. I don't know what's going on with her.
It's one of those continuing themes that everyone keeps asking you, why are you here? Even Glasses Guy does. And we don't really have that much of an answer other than Michael.
Do you think that there is another ulterior motive to Georgiou going to the future?
I don't know. It's a hard one because what would she have to gain except just seeing more of the universe? Like, she already knew about Discovery. Is it the future to her timeline? Roughly? I don't know. Whatever. She's already seen a potential future. I don't know. Maybe she just likes seeing what's out there. I don't know.
I mean, she got the Prime Universe's Defiant record, so she knows what that future looks like.
Yeah. Maybe maybe she's been time hopping much longer than we ever knew. We don't know her past before.
I think she's hoping to time travel back with future technology and use it to take over, like to rebuild the Terran Empire. I don't know.
Maybe. There's a lot of unknowns with her right now, and I'm loving it because I love Giorgio.
And speaking of which, the Admiral said that the temporal wars that they fought, the conclusion was that people from the future wouldn't travel into the past. No, I think she said that. I'm sorry. I think he said that the people from the future shouldn't change the past, and people from the past shouldn't change the future. And I was like, but that's what the past does.
I mean, that is the past.
Right. The past defines the future. And okay, if you want to limit it to time travel, but I don't think that's what he said. I think he said people from the past shouldn't change the future. I'm like, the only way for them to do that is to not exist. And even then they're changing the future. So semantics, I know.
There's nuance there. Like, but then also, like, he was like, Discovery coming here, it's a crime. And I'm like, how would they know that? They weren't part of the temporal war and the temporal. But then, like, well, then time is maybe it's 3-dimensional thinking. Time is another thing. Like, in a state, they're all in the same period. Even if you have time travel, you are all in the same period, even if you're not. And it's all this huge metaphysical thing where, like, maybe the Federation signed the temporal accords. This Federation we know signed them, but then didn't. I don't know. Time travel, weird as part of the job.
I mean, the Federation wouldn't exist to sign those accords if it hadn't been for the Discovery's time travel.
Yeah, but it's time, 4th-dimensional thinking.
And what is the punishment for that crime? When he says you being here is a crime, they're not going to send them back because they don't have that technology.
Yeah, so who knows? Who knows? It's one of those things that I don't think it's meant to have an answer. I think it's one of those things that's supposed to be like, we have rules, and this is our vague understanding until we need to. They are rules until we need to break them.
Yeah. While they were on the starbase, we saw very little of Adira. She went off for a medical scan, and we didn't see her again.
Yeah, and I'm glad Adira. We talked a few times about pronouns.
Yes.
And this week they revealed why Adira is using she right now, even though it's supposed to be a non-binary character. And perhaps correct me if I'm wrong, but if I misremember, but when filming this, the actor had not been out yet, and so they wanted to keep using she until they were ready to announce it to the family.
I'm sorry, we didn't get any of this from the episode, did we?
No, this is Star Trek. I wanted to bring it up because we're talking about Adira.
Right,
because
okay.
my confusion of using pronouns for a character that's supposed to be non-binary. There was a Star Trek tweeted out about this. Like, it was a request from her.
There was a story on StarTrek.com, which I did not read yet.
Okay, yeah. Basically, they weren't out yet, and it becomes part of the story.
Okay, but it hasn't yet. Correct.
So it's okay. We talk about the character Adira as we know it, but I still use they them.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, especially as you were discussing about Trill being a metaphor, where you have, as a Trill, have inhabited so many gender identities. Why would you feel tied down to just one when that is so limiting compared to the Trill experience?
Yeah. So
yeah, that makes sense.
That's coming. We're getting that story soon. For anyone who's curious. But yeah, why is Adira goes for a medical scan and then poof, gone? What's up with that?
Maybe it's kind of like how on Deep Space Nine, the trivia for almost every episode was like, Jake Sisko does not appear in this episode. Like I think there was a episode of TNG that Will Wheaton was supposed to be on, and he had to give up a film contract because he had to be on that episode. And then the only thing he ended up doing was just like sitting at the con.
Oh my God.
And he was furious, and it was clearly a power play by Paramount to say, you can't go be your own movie star because we own you. And he was like, oh, I could have been a big movie actor, but I had to go sit at the con because my contract said so. So maybe Adira, I'm not saying that this is ill-intentioned in the era of Discovery, but maybe Adira was unavailable for this episode. There was an episode of TNG that Riker was not on at all. And in the opening captain's log, Picard said, Riker has gone off to this conference, so I'm doing blah, blah, blah.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the opening credits, and it says directed by Jonathan Frakes. Like, okay, so that's the conference he went to. That's why he was busy. Maybe Adira, the actor, just had other commitments and couldn't be in a full episode.
True. Or maybe something was on the cutting room floor.
Sure. Yeah, there are all those possibilities.
Yeah, so it might not be anything weird. It just might be, who knows, something happened.
Or maybe since Adira was the focus of last week's episode, they just want to take the focus off Adira this week and focus on the rest of Discovery.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what to talk about next because there's a whole B plot here.
Well, we haven't talked about the seed ship at all.
Yeah. Because ultimately, I feel like that was the B plot for this thing, even if we lost a character to it.
Yeah, so they go to the seed ship. It's run by a family of Barzans. The spouse and children have died, and the father is still there. And Nan decides to stay behind and make sure that the Barzan species completes its contract of being the steward to this ship until the next shift begins. And I did not expect to lose this character. She came all the way to the future just to run a seed ship. Yeah,
she was one people, like even Georgiou asked her, why are you here? And she's like, I just wanted to help out. And then we get here, like we get a lot of exploration on this character we haven't really seen much of other than her in the line of duty, like personality wise. Like, yes, we do, but nothing deep. Like, and so here we finally get like a little bit of exposition. Like, she really misses home. She hasn't seen a Barzan, not counting the time jump, in a long time. And she's ready to. She wants to uphold the Barzan watch of the siege ship and then go home.
Yeah, and apparently her family. Well, first of all, her people are known for two things: diligence and poverty.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like, yeah, a whole planet that's impoverished. And so imagine the significance it must have meant to Nan to find out that her planet joined the Federation, because there really aren't any impoverished Federation members.
No, so something good happened there. I feel like.
And yet, her family was so disappointed when she joined the Federation. Like Michael, I would have thought her family would have been overjoyed that Nan escaped poverty.
It's like Quark was a little weirded out by not going to Starfleet. Vulcans were upset with Spock going to Starfleet.
Okay, I guess if
you're leaving home. Sense. My mom didn't want me to move to Washington to go to video game school, so I like. That didn't seem too out of place. Like, you're just like you're breaking tradition. Why are you doing this? We're mad at you for doing this. Is a trope that's in a lot of TV shows in life too.
Okay, when you put it that way, that makes perfect sense. I hadn't thought of that. Thank you. Yeah, I like the concept of a seed ship. It seems rather small given its mission, and also it's apparently 1,000 years old.
Yeah, that means it was built very shortly after the creation of the Federation.
Yeah, but you think that for such an important mission, it's basically Noah's Ark, that they would keep it pretty well maintained. And why is it a ship? That sounds more dangerous than just being on a planet.
Yeah, there are questions about the existence of this that don't necessarily make sense other than a concept, which is cool because we have seed vaults here on the planet, on Earth, in real life. So I think it's a concept that's cool. Flying around space, and there's a lot of dangers out there, even like coronal mass ejections that still damage ships.
Solar burps, come on.
Yeah, I don't know. It is a little weird of a concept, unless in the old days it would warp around. But even then, like, what if the wrong hands get this? It's a little weird.
The only reason I can think of it to be a ship is that it can more easily go to all the different planets it's trying to collect, rather than having the planets send their samples to somewhere else. But you're right, it just seems very prone to risk.
Yeah. And so there might be more out there. I don't know. Yeah. It's a little weird, but it's a cool concept.
Yeah. I don't have too much to say about what happened on the ship, even though in some ways it took up a large chunk of the episode. I do like how they got there which was Michael's first command, which is not exceptional for somebody who is the second in command of a starship, but that's a new position for her, and this is her first opportunity to act in Saru's absence.
Right when you said that, like, I agree it's her first command, but I was thinking, like, I rewatched Discovery season 1 about a month or two ago. Like, no, she had command of the Shenzhou for about 30 seconds before she was arrested. But no, this is her first real command.
Well, even when I was watching this episode, even I was thinking it's her first time in command without subduing her commander.
Very mirror universe concept.
Ascension through assassination.
But it was cool to see her do that. I mean, like, they gave her the cool dramatic moments of standing in the middle of the bridge, looking right at the camera and say "Black Alert" with her hands back there, and just doing all very professional looking thing. But we got to see her in command, which is really cool.
I've wanted to grab that as a screenshot because she's so her posture is great. She's centered on the screen. It's a great view of the bridge, and I just love that cinematography. I'm doing this app called 1 second every day, where I shoot 1 second of video every day, so that at the end of the year I have a 6-minute video that encapsulates every day of the whole year. And so I try to get out of the house and do something fun and interesting every day, because I don't want 6 minutes of Netflix loading screens at the end of the year. But right now I'm in a 2-week self-quarantine, and so I'm not getting out much. So that was the most significant thing that happened to me that day, was watching Discovery. And I grabbed that little clip of her saying "Black Alert," which is the first time she's ever said that, as my 1 second of the day.
Nice.
And I'm sure that now that I've said that on the record, Paramount is going to come after me and sue me for copyright.
Takedown notice.
DMCA on my memories. We didn't allow you to incorporate that into your neural engrams. How dare you?
But this whole sea ship thing, it was a subplot, but we got to see, like, the tried and true transporter accident caused him to be phased a little bit here and there. I mean, that's a classic story. They fix it real quick. We get to see Jet, Tilly, and Stamets, Paul working together in their their weird way, which did it push the story? No. Was it a fun character moment? Yes.
I know what "dumb" means. I don't need to translate it. And I love how Commander Willow says, "Despite the dysfunction, you work well as a team." And their response is, "Dysfunction is the team. We've just accepted it." No, we haven't.
And that little bit was also the show, not only the funny bit, but, like, okay, the new Federation, the current Federation is figuring out, like, okay, these people are real. They're not some weirdo. They are some weirdos, but they're not some bad guys.
So there is a series of novels set in the TNG era called the Starfleet Corps of Engineers. And it focuses, as you can imagine, specifically on engineers. I would love, like, a whole episode of Discovery that is just the three of them. Like, they go on an away mission to salvage some ship or save some planet from some normal, natural or technological disaster. And it's just Tilly, Stamets, and Jet. Just, like, for the whole episode. I want that as my A-plot.
Just reading technobabble left and right.
And just getting on each other's nerves and loving it. I would totally read that or watch that.
I mean, I've had workplaces like that. One of my favorite coworkers ever. We were dysfunctional, but we had great teamwork together. That was one of the very few times I loved going to work with that, with the old job.
Aw, that sounds fun. I have great coworkers as well. I don't know that I've ever had that experience simultaneously with being dysfunctional. Usually it's either one or the other.
Seatbelt.
By the way, this does mean that the limitations and accidents to which transporters are prone 1,000 years ago have still not been solved. Like,
nope.
You would think that maybe the transporter could scan local suns for potential solar burps, and then if it detects one, it says, "Transportation is not available at this time. Please try again later."
So they fixed holographic technology, but not transporter technology.
Well, even holograms are almost very obviously holograms. Like, these holograms seem less personable than the Doctor from Voyager.
That and the E everything H's from Picard on Rios' ship.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Those were so funny. I want to go watch Picard again now. Thanks. Yeah, I am curious. So this is a future that has evolved without access to the sphere data. And the sphere data, as we saw last week when it was advising Saru, already seems more personable than the holograms that the Federation has. So I'm wondering what is going to happen to the sphere data. And I'm wondering why the Federation is not keener to reproduce Discovery's spore drive. And they briefly alluded to that in this episode, that they wanted to dissect it and diagnose it. It doesn't solve the problem that there's only one operator right now. There's still just Stamets, and they are looking at possibly a dark matter interface that Tilly proposed. But in the absence of dilithium, Discovery's presence could be vital to the revitalization of the Federation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would think that this Admiral guy would be like, you know what? I don't care what timeline you're from. I don't care how much I trust you. I want your technology. And we didn't really see that sort of hunger in this episode.
No, we didn't see that hunger at all, but they did say like, we're going to tear it apart and refit Discovery, but that's it. Like, there was no like, oh my God, you can do what? It was just like, okay, cool. All right, we'll add that to the resources. We got things to worry about. You over there, you do this thing. And like, yeah, it's just yep, cool. We got thank you very much. We have a new freaking thing to worry about.
we have a one-of-a-kind ship, and we're going to keep it that way. Seems very ill-advised. Let's see. So we said that Adira wasn't much on this episode, but last week Adira was playing the violin of a certain song that the Barzan were also playing in the hologram of themselves on the seed ship. And Michael is suspicious. How can cultures and peoples so far apart, in the absence of warp drive, all know the same song?
And Commander Willa, the security person Willa from this Federation was, just gets into the ether. I'm like, my first thought was all around the watchtowers from Battlestar Galactica, where that was the song of the Cylons.
Oh, I don't think I got that far into BSG, so I don't know that.
They could all hear the same music.
Oh.
And they didn't know what it was, and it was all along the watchtowers.
That sounds awful.
Oh, it's a good song.
So what do you think are the implications here in Discovery?
To me, it says like, is this clearly somehow related to the burn? Because it's one of those unconnected things, like, okay, that's part of the bigger grand scheme of things. Like, Michael notices this, and Michael's researching the burn, and Michael's looking for her mom, which, like, I also did some notes on that because I forgot some things, but back to the music, like, yeah, it's all interconnected somehow together in one big plot point.
The fact that dilithium still exists in limited quantities indicates that not all dilithium exploded, just the dilithium that was on starships, and starships are run by people. And so I'm thinking it was not a molecular instability with the dilithium. I think it was some sort of a mass coordinated sabotage, kind of like a Manchurian candidate, where I think somehow everybody on every ship made the dilithium explode at the same time, and against their will somehow. But it still doesn't answer the question of how do you coordinate something across such a scale. But I think it was the people. You're
catching onto something here that keep alluding to. Michael keeps saying things like the Federation isn't a thing, it's people. Everything's connected. Everything here is tied together. Stamets is saying that it's impossible for all dilithium to blow at the exact same time, which means it was some kind of constructed thing made by people. Like, everything's connected here. There's something here that we're touching on here. That we don't have the answers to.
How about this? We know that the Telosians could make you think you're pushing one button and when in fact you're self-destructing. And in the TOS episodes, the Cage and the Menagerie, we saw just how far they can project themselves. What if they decided that the galaxy is safer without warp travel and they made everybody push the wrong buttons?
That is also the Giorgio kind of hinted on this, like, who basically did the Federation piss off?
Right, because and also the Telosians have precedent on Star Trek Discovery. They were just on the most recent season, and it's been 1,000 years since then. You think nobody has gone back to that planet in all that time? Because the Federation may have said it's under death penalty, but how many other species don't care about the Federation's death penalties? And maybe the Telosians decided to just enact revenge more broadly than who pissed them off.
There's something there. And it could be that our villain is someone we've seen before who has a connection to the Federation, or it's someone we're going to find more information about as the rest of the episode goes on. Like, who are some of the players that we haven't actually seen yet? Like, Spock is possibly a player here. We got, the bigger one is Michael's mom.
Right.
Is an unknown thing here, which I had why is she so obsessed with this? Like, I had to go back and relearn some of the stuff from season 2. Okay. So, I've forgotten that Michael's mom is somehow tied to quote unquote the future. And when she got untangled from the spacesuit, she got sent back to Terra Elysium, her anchor point, quote unquote, in the future. We don't know exactly when, but the way they're alluding to, it's going to be soon.
Yeah, we need to get answers about her mom. That's come up a couple of times in this season so far. But also, we are now halfway through this season. This is the end of episode 5 out of 10. And so it's getting to be late in the game for them to introduce a new villain. Now, granted, season 2, we didn't see Control right up front either. That took a while to build out. So maybe it's not too late, but I would like for whoever they introduce to not be cut from the whole cloth at this point.
Yeah, because otherwise it's basically related to her mom. The only unseen factor here, the burn is. The Michael Burnham, no.
And I've talked about that, how there should also be a ham if there's a burn. And we also don't know what is the tie-in with Calypso.
Yeah. So those are our big, I think, unseen things that we know exist, but we haven't seen them or seen much about them yet.
Yeah.
The tying. There's something there.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions and not enough answers, which is the nature of Discovery. They're very good about that, and it keeps us hooked to watch more. I mean, I am finding myself on the edge of my seat waiting for every Thursday to come because I can't wait to find out what new answers we're going to get, but also what new questions we're going to get.
Yeah.
So questions seems like a good way to end this episode of Transporter Lock, but is there anything else you want to mention before we sign off? Any little notes that we overlooked?
Vance and Glasses Guy were treating the burn as if it was a person or people who caused it. So that's just something to note.
They do have a lot of theories, and at least they have those.
Yeah, and Vance treated it as intelligence and not, at first, and not necessarily scientific research. And so that's a clue. Glasses Guy is kind of the same thing. Glasses Guy was played by David Cronenberg. He does body. He was. I wrote down the notes. The originators of body horror. He directed The Fly and did a bunch of really grotesque things. So I'm like, is this a clue as to his character as well, or is it more like we just need creepy guy and he does creepy really well?
Well, The Fly was technically about a transporter.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll be seeing that crossover.
No, probably not. Then just thematically, cinematography here was the beginning of this episode starts with Saru and Michael looking out the window, and then it ends that way. I thought that was just some really cool things here, the shots here. I thought that was really awesome to have a reflection at the beginning and a reflection at the end.
Yeah, I like that bookmark, that synchronicity.
Yeah. But otherwise the notes no, what's eating Jojo? Michael's mom. Oh, they keep bringing up Spore Drive. We need to find an alternative to Stamets. And here Vance is all right, we're going to do a refit. So that's going to become a part of something here. We're going to get more to that too.
I mean, if they do develop that dark matter interface, then this becomes easier to replicate to other Federation starships and will be core to rebuilding the Federation.
Yeah, so that's another thing that we're going to see more on later. But that's it for most of my notes here, I think.
Cool. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add other than I am digging where this season is going. I like that it's in the future. I want to see some sort of a tie-in to the past, but at the same time, I appreciate how freeing it is to be so far in the future because they're not beholden to this Discovery has never heard of, as I mentioned, Janeway, but also Picard and Kirk and Cisco, and they don't know who the founders are. The Kazon, Talax, even the Ferengi. This is all, well, no, the Ferengi originally appeared on Enterprise. And
they didn't know them. They didn't have a name for them.
Right. But yeah, there's just so much that you and I know as viewers, but which is new to Discovery. And I just hope that they keep that in mind as they go, where these are things that it's not just being so far into the future of Star Trek that's new to this crew. It's also being in the future of Discovery, like TOS, TNG, DS9, Voyager. It's all their future. It's all things you and I know that they don't, despite being the year 3000. So that's sort of a disconnect. And it hasn't been an issue yet, and I hope it continues to be a non-issue.
Yeah.
And also the episode Die Trying. I think the name of this episode refers to how the father on the seed ship would not give up. He was trying to save his family, even though they were already gone. And he did not want to come back, even after he was saved from the transporter malfunction. He was there for good. And this is the kind of thing that the Federation is all about. You commit yourself to something, and that means you're committing your body, your life, and your soul. You are going to do this thing, and you're going to see it through. And that's something that Nan embodied. She said, I'm going to see this through after this guy is gone, because he is going to die trying, and it's my place as one of his kin to pick up that torch.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of my notes. I'm like, what is up with the weird episode titles this season?
I think the episode titles this season make a lot more sense than like season 1, where, what was it, like Conscience is for Kings or something, or Foreshadowing is for Kings. But like this season, the first episode was That Hope Is You, and that's a line Burnham said to Booker in the first episode.
But like the part 1.
Yes, that is weird. I agree on that.
Or even like we have Unification 3 coming up. Like,
well, yes, these things aren't going to make sense until we see the show, so we can speculate. But like Far From Home was when Discovery landed on the ice planet. That was their first experience in the future, so they were far from home. People of Earth is when they went to Earth. Forget Me Not is all about reclaiming the memories of the Trill symbiont. So those names, once we see them, make sense. But you're right. Future episodes like Unification 3, The Sanctuary, Terra Firma, The Citadel, The Good of the People, Outside. I cannot infer anything from those names about what these episodes might be about.
I think one of the weirdest is some of these are like parts of expressions, but not the whole one. Or they feel incomplete. Like Hope Is You Part 1. We used to hear like People of Earth, like as an announcement, like some alien who's going to continue on a sentence, or usually we hear or die trying.
Right, that's true.
And so it's like the episode titles feel incomplete in some interesting way, and it's not necessarily bad. It's just it's a hang up. It's like, that's the title, really?
I'm sorry. The name of the season 1 episode 3 of Discovery was Context is for Kings, but I'm also thinking about Picard, where we had to look up like et in Arcadia ego.
Yeah.
Like, it's an entirely different language, and then we had to realize, like, oh, it means that even in this futuristic utopia, there is still strife and death. And Calypso, I think they eventually worked that into the episode. And Obal for Sharon is the episode where the sphere died and gave its data to the Discovery. I mean, I feel like...
They like their Greek and Latin.
Yeah, I mean, some of the names make more sense. There was Project Daedalus and the Red Angel. Those are very obvious names for Discovery Season 2 episodes.
Even Daedalus is another Greek thing, so or Latin thing.
Oh, that's true. That's true. But it at least referred to something in episode.
Yeah.
They actually had a project called Daedalus. So I feel like the arc of the intelligibility of their episode names is improving, at least. Cool.
Super quick. Culber is more empathic. This actor is amazing at the empathy. And him talking to Michael on the seed ship is amazing. I just love this guy. I'm loving this character more and more and more.
Oh yeah, where he said, you have to go tell this guy his family is dead, because you're an outsider and he'll listen to you. Yeah,
but it's just like, Culber is such an empathic pseudo-psychiatrist here in this season, and he just does it so well.
And he's got this smile when he does it that could be seen as a smirk, but from him it's just so warm.
Yeah. Wilson Cruz is he's showing some great range in this series. Like, I didn't know him before, really, but he's showing some amazing acting in this series and Discovery just in general, and I love it.
Oh, and one more thing is, I kind of thought that Kayla Detmer, by acknowledging her PTSD, would in TV magic suddenly solve it as well. But we see this week she's still struggling with that, even though she's aware of it.
Yeah, so good on Star Trek.
Oh, and if we're ready to move off Discovery, one last note before we go. I've been trying to watch a lot of Chadwick Boseman movies lately, which sadly there weren't more of. But I rewatched Black Panther. A couple months ago, I watched Marshall, where he played Thurgood Marshall. Last week, I watched Get On Up, where he plays the musician James Brown. And last night, I watched 21 Bridges, where he plays an original character. It's a thriller where he's a New York detective trying to catch some cop killers. And it wasn't until I was watching the credits after the movie was over, that I realized a small but important part in that movie was played by Alexander Siddig.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Dr. Bashir from DS9. So I went and rewatched that scene. It's clearly him now that I know what to look for. But I hadn't seen him in 20 years. I know he's on other things. I just haven't seen them. He had short hair, a salt and pepper beard, and he was wearing a bathrobe.
Yeah, the Bashir we all know.
Exactly. But like, I just tried to ignore all that and listen to his voice, and I was like, "Oh my god, that is so Dr. Bashir! I love it."
Awesome.
So it was nice. It was an unexpected and pleasant surprise to see him again. So, all right. So that's it for this week of Transporter Lock. The next episode will be next week, and the episode title will be Scavengers. So who knows where they're sending Discovery, because they go when and where the Federation tells them. And we will be here to review it. Until then,
hit it.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on iTunes and keep your hailing frequencies open by following us on Twitter @TransporterLock or subscribing to our podcast and email newsletter at transporterlock.com.
The phrase like dad joke like blew up sometime in the last decade or so.
Does your dad tell bad jokes?
Yeah, I mean it feels like a stereotype of dads. That's true. I don't know. I'm saying that's not. I'm not contesting that it exists. I'm just pointing out that I noticed the phrase got heavy use in the vernacular in the last decade or so.
Well, I'm looking at Urban Dictionary, and a lot of the definitions come from around like 2013 or so. It's an indescribably cheesy or dumb joke made by a father to his children. And, you know, here's another definition from 2015. A joke which makes son or family members facepalm because of how simple it is. Oh, here's one from 2004. An embarrassingly bad joke, often demonstrated during wedding or 21st birthday speeches.
So it seems like we're saying, it's always been there, but it finally got a name around the early teens.
Well, let me look up Wikipedia, because Wikipedia sometimes gives the history of something. Let's see. While the exact origin of the term dad joke is unknown, a writer for the Gettysburg Times wrote an impassioned defense of the genre in June 1987 under the headline, wow. Don't ban the dad jokes, preserve and revere them.
Interesting.
The term dad jokes received mentions in the American sitcom How I Met Your Mother in 2008. In September 2019, Merriam-Webster added dad joke to the dictionary.
So I wonder if it was more like a regional thing somewhere, and then it started growing, and then like started getting used like in a TV show, and then it started blowing up.
That seems likely. I mean, a lot of our life imitates art, so when something becomes popular on a TV show, we all pick it up. You know, like how often do we quote Seinfeld, even though the show's been off the air for decades?
Yeah. What's the deal with airplane peanuts?